David today, so we'll talk about me, so thank you. And thank you for your perseverance beforehand to start. So, first of all, welcome to this meeting of the Council's Audit Committee. This meeting is to be held remotely and also in person, and be filmed and recorded for live and subsequent broadcast available through the Council's website. The Council has a data controller under the Data Protection Regulations and the Data Protection Act 2018. We broadcast and record Council meetings to fulfil a public task obligation to enable members of the public to observe the democratic process. Data collected during the process will be retained in accordance with the Council's public policies available through the Council's website. Members of the Council are reminded that they should follow the Council's established meeting protocols, including around the use of the chat facility, and that comments made in the chat facility are visible to all members of the meeting, which may include members of the public who have also received invites to the meeting. So just before we start, I'd just like to say welcome everybody again, and Happy New Year to everyone. So first of all, item on the agenda is apologies, substitutions and declarations.
Apologies from Councillor Nelson and Councillor Wilson. We'll now move to a roll call. The following members please indicate if they're present at the meeting either in person or remotely. Councillor Fogarty.
In person.
Councillor Crowther.
Present in chamber.
Councillor Curley.
Present chamber.
Councillor Hillier.
Present in chamber.
Councillor Law.
Present remotely.
Councillor McCormick.
Present remotely.
Councillor Maguire.
Present.
Councillor McVeigh.
In chamber.
Councillor Robertson.
Present in the chamber.
Are there any declarations of interest?
Thank you. And just before we get any further, I'd just like to also acknowledge the fact that Chair of the Audit Committee is not going to make it today because he's had that family bereavement. We just it's okay with Chris just note the wish of condolences to Councillor Wilson on this day. I just have it locked in the record. Thank you. So moving on then, we have agenda item number 2, internal audit progress report, and doctors.
Thanks, Chair. So this report sets out the progress of internal audit activity for the period 1st of September to 31st of October 2024. During the period, there were no audits finalised, but work on the 24-25 audit plan is being progressed, and the status of audits is set out in Section 3 of Appendix 1. Paragraph 3.5, the covering report also sets out some changes to the audit plan, including how the balance of 25 days will be used in terms of the rescoping of the ASN transport audit to focus on reviewing policy compliance, and also the resource that's been allocated to the payroll audit will now be used to provide audit support to the CRIS 21 upgrade project. In relation to action plan follow-up, good progress continues to be made by officers in terms of implementing agreed audit actions. The status report at 31st of October is set out in Appendix 2. There were no actions due for completion by the 31st of October, and there are 8 current actions being progressed by officers. In relation to corporate fraud activity, the team continues to carry out a number of inquiries and investigations in relation to council tax discounts, exemptions, National Fraud Initiative and other inquiries. In relation to the National Fraud Initiative, a number of matches for the 2024 exercise have now been released in relation to housing benefit, blue badge, payroll and council tax reduction cases. These will now be investigated by the relevant teams, and an update on the overall exercise will be provided to the May Audit Committee. In relation to whistleblowing investigations, we have concluded on the investigation into shortfalls of cash held in client and petty cash accounts. The final report has been issued and agreed, and a summary of the key findings and recommendations is also included as part of today's private agenda. Happy to take any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Open up for any questions. I see anything in the chat.
Oh,
Sorry.
yeah. Yeah, there is just one under the corporate fraud activity, section 3.1, where it comes under the discretionary payments not yet started. Is there ongoing negotiations on that, and is there a starting date in the very near future?
Through yourself, Chair, in relation to the discretionary payments, The team is short of resource at the moment. We're going to recruit shortly for another post. So the priorities for the team is around the National Fraud Initiative investigations and also other corporate fraud, whistleblowing and other referrals. We do hope to resume some of these investigations in the near future, and I'll be able to bring an update to the next committee.
That's fine, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Just on relation to item 3.5 on big page 2, a child with interrogated. Just with respect to the notice this risk-based review and cybersecurity being undertaken by Glasgow City Council, are you able to provide any more information on that aspect?
To yourself, Chair, the planning for the audit, I understand, is underway, and both the Chief Executive and the Chief Financial Officer, along with myself, will receive information in terms of the proposed terms of reference for agreement.
Okay, so it's obviously good to see that cybersecurity is something we're keeping an eye on, and we're as part of our ongoing audit processes. Thank you. Is anybody else for Commissioner McBain?
Thanks, Chair. And again on 3.5, we know we've got significant budget pressure on the ASN transport. Is that going to influence what we're doing here, or is that going to be separate?
Through yourself, Chair, so the original scope of the audit, this was on last year's audit plan, and the original scope was also to look at the value for money side of it. But management are already progressing their own projects under the Delivering Differently programme. So we've decided the audit work will focus on just the compliance with policy, as in the eligibility criteria, and making sure there's regular reviews of the cases that have been allocated. ASN provision is separately. Management through the Delivering Differently programme will bring a project update to the Delivering Differently programme on their review of the costs and what they're going to do in terms of changing the way that service is delivered.
Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. Just a question, and please feel free to shoot me down, Andy, so I'm sure you will. You mentioned in one of your talk there about whistleblowing. What oversight do elected members have on whistleblowing to the council? When do we see that reported at the audit, or do we see it reported at individual service committees? So if somebody does a whistleblowing, as you said, where do we see that reported, and how do we know that that's getting followed through, if that makes sense to you?
Through yourself, Chair, so it comes through this committee, and if there's anything specific where we find evidence of fraud or irregularity, we will provide a summary of the full report to committee, and that will be taken as a private item.
Do we get any? Oh, sorry. No. Do we get actually any information on, like, how many whistleblowing items there's been, how many have been upheld? Do we get an overall view of it? You know, so for us to get a handle on it, because if it just comes in a report, we will not know in totality if there is an issue type of thing.
Through yourself, Chair, that's something that we probably could look at doing. We already bring an annual report on the internal audit activity, but what that doesn't do is give an overview of, it gives the overview of the National Fraud Initiative cases that we look at, but it doesn't necessarily give you, we received 14 whistleblowing investigations or other types of referrals there. There's a table within the regular quarterly progress reports, so it would be no problem to bring that into the annual report if that would provide Audit Committee with more assurance over the process.
And through yourself, Convener, we don't get a lot of whistleblowing, and so that's probably why it's not the forefront in relation to elected members' minds. But I was just going to suggest exactly as Andy did, that actually what we could do, and it does come in the report, but we could maybe put a paragraph in and expand a little bit on it so that elected members have got more information in respect to that, if that's helpful.
No, thanks for yourself, Chair. I think
Yeah.
that.
No, I think that's a good idea. Is anybody else any other comments? Don't see anything to share. So based on that action, putting that action up in the recommendations, everybody is able to agree to note the contents of the agenda item number 2 of the internal audit report, and subject to that additional request, we then approve that. Is that okay?
Yep. Agreed.
Okay. Moving on to agenda item number 3.
Thanks, Chair. So, the purpose of this report is to advise members of the status of implementation of external audit action plans. There were no actions due for completion by 31st of October. However, one action which was due for completion by the 30th of November has been reported as completed. The status report has also been updated to reflect the new actions arising from the recent 23-24 external audit. They are set out in section 3 of the report, and there are now 7 current actions being progressed by officers. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Is there any questions on that, Crystal? Don't see anything in the room and nothing online. So based on that, are we content to approve as per the recommendations?
Agreed.
Yeah. Moving on then to agenda item number 4, anti-fraud and corporate policy. Yourself again.
Thanks, Chair. So this report fulfils an external audit action plan to have a regular review process for all policies that are key to the Council, of which the anti-fraud and corruption policy is one such policy. So we recently reviewed and updated this in November 2024. There were no substantive changes made other than updating the policy to the new Council's format, also referencing the Corporate Finances Act 2017 policy, and also the Data Protection Act 2018 and UK General Data Protection Regulation, and also some changes to job titles throughout the policy. The Audit Committee is asked today to approve the updated policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Is any questions on this updated policy? I see nothing on the chat. Are we content to approve as per the recommendations?
Agreed.
Yeah. Moving on then to agenda number 5, the best value thematic review, workforce innovation. Mr. Buckland, I think this is yourself, Mr. Murray.
Thank you for being here. Yes, good afternoon, everyone. One of the roles of the Audit Committee is to review and provide comment on any reports by external audits. This is the first one we've had for some period of time. The attached report originally went to the 24th of October Council, and it was agreed to remit it back to the Audit Committee for further consideration. The 3 actions on big page 85 are now reported to each committee as part of Andy's update in terms of external audit actions, and they'll be reported until they're delivered. I'm happy to answer any questions or relevant officers because it's quite a wide-ranging thematic review.
Thank you, Mr. Buckland. Has anybody got any questions for Mr. Buckland on this report? As he says, it's quite a large report. It's always come to us. Review as the Audit Committee, and we've got an action to provide feedback to officers. So, looking forward to everybody to provide any feedback. I've got a question on if I may. Just with respect to the feedback, obviously it's within this chamber here in the committee, but I'm just wondering, is there how do we actually sort of progress this and actually provide elected member input to these audit recommendations, and I've also got any comment about maybe a good way of doing that, because maybe the committee setting might not be the best way to provide sort of feedback.
Yes, through Convener. Generally, the part came before the board on this one because it came up as part of the council report, where ideally it would have come to the audit committee before it went to the full council. You could have had that input in there. Obviously, the audit actions identified are those deemed as the most appropriate by KPMG, and they wouldn't change per se. You wouldn't drop an action because the committee didn't think it would be necessary. But I think that there is something around this in terms of the wider transformation agenda, where it might be there are a couple of actions around both to do with digital and to do with workforce development. And the Chief Executive is progressing a session for senior officers with the improvement service later this month, and it may be worthwhile, maybe another member workshop around transformation, workforce development, digital would be the way ahead. to allow elected members, not just of this committee, but the wider group of elected members, to input to the future direction of the council in that regard.
Okay, there's one more to come in.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Through yourself, convener, happy to arrange a session once we've done the session with improvement service for elected members, a kind of briefing workshop session to look at transformational change, which will pick up many of the issues which are in the workforce report that you've got in front of you.
Thank you. Is it Councillor Day?
Thank you, Convener. Alan, just historically, in my time in council, audits were about finances. Now we'll have a new auditor, and now we're seeing the scope of the audit widening out to look at development plans, community development plans, and probably be able to account for that more than maybe we were previously. Is that the way you see this going with one new auditor? Is it a local thing, or is it a bit of a nationwide thing that we're getting more scrutiny on the other aspects of the council's work rather than just on finance?
Personally, based on my experience, I don't think there has been any significant shift, and it certainly is down to the fact that we've got different auditors. If anything, I would have always thought that Audit Scotland were more focused on the best value audit side of things. Remember, that used to be a set piece audit that happened every 4 or 5 years. Now it is spread over every year. There's a different theme, and the theme this year or last year was workforce development. The year coming, it's transformation. And so I think there's just a visibility now in terms of there's a specific report produced every year around that. I can reassure the elected members and Matt, who's here, and other finance officers here, there is no lessening of the interest in the council finances from the external auditors, and neither should there be. But these are important matters, and it probably takes the audit committee into areas that are not maybe core business for the audit committee, but they're important issues around governance and planning and joining up all these things together. And that's why it's useful to get the audit committee input to any reports that are produced.
Okay, thanks for that.
Yes, I think from my perspective, I've been involved in audits and professionally, that kind of process and procedure aspect and mitigating those corporate risks that way. So my focus, that's not. I've not got a financial background, not the auditing of financial reports, but I think it's very interesting. It all provides a holistic view of organisations, which is good to see. So thank you for that. Any other questions on this particular report? So are we content to read the recommendations?
Agreed.
It's subject to the suggestion by Mr. Buchan. Moving on then, agenda item number 6, that is the corporate risk register. And I think, if I'm wrong, this is your first time with you, Ms. Park, so very, very welcome to you, and please present the paper for us.
Thank you, Convener. Yes, Deborah Clark, Corporate Risk Advisor. The purpose of this report is to present key developments in relation to risk management, according to the previous report, and to present the corporate risk register showing the most significant risks to the council. The key developments in respect of risk management last year have been a review of the format of the presentation of the information on the risks in the risk registers to separate into respective component parts. A review of the corporate risk register, which was completed with CLT, resulting in a creation of one new risk, which falls above the council's acceptable risk boundary, and professional training in risk management for elected members was completed to review the knowledge of risk management and introduce the topic of risk appetite. And the Audit Committee is asked to consider implementing that from the corporate risk register. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Maguire, I think you've got a question in chat.
Yes, thank you. Can everybody hear me okay?
You're a wee bit faint. Just a second.
Oh,
It's faint.
okay. Is that any better?
Marginally.
Okay, I'm using a headset, so it should be much clearer than it usually
No,
is.
that's my technical. Thank you.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. So yes, I just have a couple of questions about the risk register itself. So First one's just around CRR03, just around the council assets not being fit for purpose and the potential consequences being serious injury or fatality of staff third party. Are we content that all current and future mitigations that are in place are suitable to minimise or totally eradicate the potential of this happening? And then my second set of questions kind of lumps together risk 4, 7 and 9, where a lot of these potential causes appears to be things like training and knowledge building, or in the case of risk 9, better software being procured could potentially mitigate it. Once again, are we quite content that the training that we've got in place will minimise these risks, if not eradicate them? And do we have any plans in place regarding the system? Because ultimately with the cyber attack one, we're all more than aware of the public service attacks that have happened in the UK over the past year or so.
Thank you, Natasha. If I picked you up correctly, I think the first question relates to corporate risk number 3 and the second question relates to corporate risk number 8. So I'll bring Stuart in first for number 3. That's okay.
Convener. Councillor Maguire, whilst we can't guarantee that there will be no failure in any building, you'll notice that we have a number of current mitigations in place, and those mitigations bring the risk and
Just need to hold on a minute before Stuart.
I'll pick up for sure if that's okay. So through that, not that
my opinion, and therefore we believe that we've got sufficient controls in place to make sure that the public are
Stuart,
safe.
unfortunately, we lost you for about 10 seconds there. Would you be able to give your answer again, please, for the we've lost him again?
Is IT on the list?
Yeah, I think we're
losing Stuart.
I wonder if that can be a fair substitute, convener. So I think what Stuart was saying is that you can't ever mitigate all the risks when you have as many buildings as we've got, but you'll see when you look at the current mitigations that we have a number of mitigations that are in place, including a corporate asset management strategy. We have strategies and assessments that happen in relation to our buildings, as well as constantly looking at our buildings through the rationalisation programme. But happy to take any feedback from elected members if they feel that there's more that we should be doing in that space.
I noticed that Stuart has now found himself beside Ms. Banks. So, Stuart, anything more to add from what the Chief Executive said?
Unfortunately, I was transiting along the corridor, so I didn't hear all that the Chief Executive said, but what I did say in my introduction was that we've got mitigation measures in place, and public safety and staff safety is our priority, and we believe that the risks are mitigated to a sufficient level at this stage that the public and our employees are safe.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else want to pick up on that particular point? No, so moving on then, I think to the next question from Councillor Maguire was corporate risk number 8. And I think
Sorry, Dina, sorry. It was risk 4, 7 and 9. It was all about training, and in particular risk 9, about the software being outdated has been a risk. Thanks. Sorry, convener, for interrupting you there.
No, there was a reason here, Natasha. So it's corporate risk number 4, 7 and 9.
It's 4, 7 and 9, yes.
Okay. There you go, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, so 4, 7 and 9, I suppose I'd like to an extent, but generally relate to any kind of information loss that might be caused by any kind of IT event, including a cyber attack. Also, something that might be caused by the fact that IT systems might not be up to date, or the investment isn't sufficient in IT systems, but also separately in relation to regulatory requirements, in relation to information governance and the risk that is posed there. The reason that these risks are on the risk register is really because of the risks. It's not that there's anything specific that has to be highlighted related to them. And I think that
you probably find that most organisations have these things on as risks because they are just such hot topics. There's no doubt that they are relatively high risks in relation to most organisations, and so it's a prudent thing to have these on the risk register. It's not because there's any specific issue in relation to those. I'm satisfied that at present there are sufficient mitigations in place to deal with those risks. Now, these risks will always remain relatively high and probably will always remain on the risk register for the foreseeable future just because of the potential impact and also the likelihood, given the meaning that cyber attacks in particular are on the increase. But in terms of us and our standing among other local authorities and other public bodies, I think we're in a reasonable position at the moment. Now, that's not to say that there can't be improvements and we will obviously continuously improve. In fact, members will be aware that as part of our digital and customer services strategy, we split that into two phases. In the first phase would be that there would be an assessment phase so that we can see actually what our place is in terms of the wider market, and for there to be a digital maturity exercise carried out so that we can see whether there's any gaps there that we can close. But at the moment, I'm satisfied that everything that we are doing sufficiently mitigates the risk. That's not to say that means that the risk is completely closed off. Of course, it's not, but we are completely aware of the risk and are doing what we can to make sure that it doesn't actually come to fruition.
Thank you. I think looking at it from our perspective, see that it's the causes, it's not the actual causes. These are general things that could cause this, and this is but we're not saying these specific things that have happened in Inverclyde. I've got a bit of text here from Councillor Maguire, which I'll just read out.
Yeah, that's just to clarify my question. Yeah,
So
that's broadly been answered.
That's fine, Natasha. My question is, a lot of these risks 479 are potentially resolved by training and knowledge building. Are we satisfied training will mitigate the knowledge gap related risks? In regards to risk 9, are there plans for a system to be procured to minimise the outdated IT?
So most of that's been answered, I believe. I think maybe the outdated IT system's the only thing outstanding, and I'm not implying at all by asking these questions that if it's happened relating to any of these in Inverclyde.
I think I missed the last question. Can you repeat it?
Just in regards to risk 9, are there plans for a system to be procured to minimise the risk due to outdated IT system?
Okay. Okay. So in relation to the first risk or the first question in relation to training, so that there is e-learning, mandatory e-learning training that's required for all new staff members, and there was a refreshing of that relatively recently. That's something that we'll look at, as to whether that's sufficient or whether that needs to be enhanced in any way. But it's something that we hope will come up as part of the digital maturity exercise, so that we can see what our counterparts are doing. But my understanding is that what we're doing is the same as what most local authorities are doing, so I don't have any particular concerns. Again, that doesn't mean that there's no room for improvement, and we'll continue to look at that. In terms of a system to be procured, I'm not aware of a specific system that would mitigate that risk, but it's something again that will be looked at as part of that assessment phase of the digital strategy. Thank you.
Ms. Long, do you want to come in on that?
Thank you very much, convener, and through you. So it's just to add to Lindsay Brown's answer in relation to that. You will know since COVID we've invested a significant amount of money in our digital infrastructure, and we've obviously migrated a lot of things to the cloud that previously we had in server. So we have done a lot, but we also recognise there is a lot to do, and that's why, as Lindsay is suggesting, a digital maturity assessment. I think that's a really good idea, and once we've got that, we understand the actions we need to take. We're happy to bring it back to elected members.
Yeah, thank you for that. Councillor Maguire, anything else you want to add?
No, that's perfect. Thank you. I think that was thoroughly answered. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Robson?
Thanks, Mayor. Just it's really about the digital maturity exercise and the context of what we've just discussed, really. Is that something that we are doing alone as an organisation? It's something that we're doing in a wider context, because I mean the infrastructural risks that are there in terms of IT, etc., the solutions and the kind of holding of a risk might be better done across more organisations than just us in terms of resource, finance, etc. If all 32 local authorities, and I'm only just looking at local authorities there, never mind health boards and other organisations like ours, if all 32 of us are putting resource and finance into mitigating and holding these particular risks individually, then we're perhaps not doing the right thing financially. Yeah, I completely understand that there must be some kind of efficiencies of scale in relation to that and learning from other local authorities, and where that can be done, we will look to do that. But I think that the digital maturity exercise is really individual, and different councils have got different challenges at different stages in terms of the digital maturity. So actually what we're looking to find out is where we are in the wider landscape, where do we actually sit, and how mature actually are we, and how much work requires to be done. So I think that has to be done on an individual basis. Just to double, so we're doing that individually with the aim to then, once we know where we are, we can look at options beyond ourselves. Yeah.
Is there any other questions on this paper? If that is a no, then can we agree the recommendations as per paper? I can also make the appropriate motion for the private session for the last paper, please.